Innovative Solutions, Breaking Down Funding Silos. In this panel, you will discover how San Francisco programs that facilitate cross-departmental and cross-sector collaboration are creating more seamless support for children, youth, and families. Nonprofit leaders will highlight how these collaborative funding approaches reduce barriers, simplify access, and create a more connected continuum of support from cradle to career. So, to provide an introduction and some framing to the conversation, I'm excited to introduce Allie Sutton, Chief Program Officer at Tipping Point Community. Allie brings deep expertise in poverty reduction and systems change, having previously served as California's Deputy Secretary for Homelessness and led major statewide initiatives to expand housing and social service coordination. She has also held leadership roles at the California Department of Social Services and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, where she focused on anti-poverty efforts within the Administration for Children and Families. Welcome, Allie.
Nothing like feeling short to have to step up on a little stool, but nice to see you all, and thank you so much for the warm introduction. It's really nice to be here with everyone this afternoon. I'm also really mindful that me and this panel are probably the last thing between you and your weekend, but I assure you it is worth it. So you're really in for an incredible treat, and excited to wrap up the day with you all. And funnily enough, I actually earlier today was in another panel hosted by the Alameda County Social Services Agency on this exact same topic. So it brought together nonprofits, philanthropy, and local government as well to discuss how we each play to our strengths and can be better partners. So it's clear to me, given the day I've had, that there's some real momentum being built around this idea of breaking down silos, particularly in this moment. And that gives me a lot of hope on what is possible. At Tipping Point, we understand that solving poverty isn't the work of one sector. It is the shared responsibility of all of us. Real progress happens when nonprofits, philanthropy, and government work together, sharing what we each do best and creating systems that are easier for people to navigate. In fact, a big part of what we do at Tipping Point is help nonprofits connect and bring together philanthropy, government, and the community to make a greater impact. Because we know collaboration takes time, it takes trust, it takes persistence, but when it works, the sum is definitely greater than its parts. The next panel will bring some amazing examples of cross-sector collaboration happening right here in San Francisco, including work that happens to be led by two of Tipping Point's amazing grantees. Hi, guys. But before we hear from those amazing leaders, I want to share a couple of examples from the philanthropic perspective that show how this kind of partnership is already happening across our community, and how philanthropy can and needs to continue to show up as a strong partner in this moment. So my first example, I don't know if we've got any of our HSA friends in the room, I haven't seen you all, but the state recently launched a guaranteed income pilot for former foster youth, but part of that application process for counties was requiring a philanthropic match. So I won't get into why that was the case, but it was. And Tipping Point got a call from our great San Francisco HSA partners to try to help figure out how this was going to happen. In that moment, Tipping Point reached out. We quickly mobilized and coordinated multiple funders to help streamline the engagement with HSA, because we know engaging with funders and funder reports and funder relationships can take a lot of time. So we ended up building a $1.3 million pooled fund to help support this effort. It allowed the city to compete for those competitive funds and ultimately implement this critical program for former foster youth in our community. It continues to be a model of really true public-private partnership. The public sector at HSA is leading on the policy and the implementation, and philanthropy at Tipping Point is filling that funding gap and handling the coordination amongst funders. One final example, a more regional example, because Tipping Point, some of you may not know, we actually are a regional funder. But over the past 3 years, Tipping Point has been using its convening power, which is one of the key tools in philanthropy, to bring together more than 30 organizations and county governments across 6 Bay Area counties on a quarterly basis for what we're calling the Youth Homelessness Community of Practice. We paid nonprofits for their participation because we know coordination is real work and takes real time, and we created an intentional space for them to share strategies, challenges, and solutions to youth homelessness throughout the region. Over the course of those 3 years, attendance continued to stay high, I will admit, much to my surprise, but it really showed how hungry people are for this kind of coordination and space. And it also, and I think, is a testament to the intentionality that we at Tipping Point took to build a meaningful and useful structure for those convenings, something that I think can often go overlooked or is undervalued. More importantly, that collaboration has continued beyond the 3-year initiative. Counties are carrying forward with those coordination structures, sustaining them because they see the value even after our philanthropic funding ran out. We are in a moment where public resources are shrinking, and philanthropy is being asked to do more than ever. At the same time, poverty rates are rising across the Bay Area, and policy changes coming down from the federal government are making it harder for families to make ends meet. That's why partnership is so important right now. We can't afford to pull back into our silos. This is the moment to dig in together, to share knowledge, align funding, and design systems collectively. It's not easy work, but it's exactly what will help our city weather this storm. So with that, I am thrilled to introduce the moderator for today's panel, someone who knows firsthand what it takes to build partnerships across sectors, and someone I am lucky to call my own supervisor, Supervisor Myrna Melgar. Supervisor, yeah, please clap. I'll give a little, not that she needs proper introduction, but Supervisor Melgar is a former executive director of a youth development nonprofit, has long been a champion of early childhood education, family support services, transit access, bike and pedestrian safety, and affordable housing. So please join me in welcoming Supervisor Melgar.
So this is so exciting for me because I feel like half of you are my friends and former coworkers, so it definitely feels like family. So before I introduce our distinguished panelists today, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about why they asked me to moderate this panel. So I am the first woman elected to represent District 7. I'm also the first Latina ever elected to any district in San Francisco. And I say that and people clap, but it's actually not a thing that we should clap for because it took until 2020 to get there, and that I think is a great shame. But I'm telling you this because, you know, my family came to San Francisco from El Salvador during the Civil War in the 1980s when I was a kid. None of us spoke English. We ended up here because we had family on both sides of my family. And ended up in a little studio apartment where my sisters and I slept in a closet. And, you know, I am well aware that if we had landed in most other places in the country, I would not be here today, having done, you know, what I've done, and my sisters also would not have had the access and the opportunities that we've had because we landed here. So, you know, we were, like many immigrant kids, in the position of learning English before the parents learned it and acted as the translators, as the go-betweens between our parents and society. It changed the power dynamics in our house. But, you know, through all of that, we were able to enroll in school, take Muni, get vaccines, you know, get hooked up with the services that we need. The stress of immigration and war, you know, really ratcheted up a lot of issues that we had in our family, namely domestic violence. And we got lots of help from the community, which is how my family was able to weather all of this trauma. And we are here today. So I remember vividly one day we were driving down 19th Avenue in front of Stonestown. You know, those houses are really pretty. And I was like, wow, they're so pretty. And my auntie, all the kids, the cousins were in the back, because in the 80s, we weren't into seatbelts. And my auntie said, yeah, that's not for us. We could never afford to live here. This is not for us. And I remember my cousin and I, we just looked at each other and we're like, oh shit, it's not for us. Nobody had ever said anything like that before, right? But now I'm the supervisor for that district, right? And so what we're doing here today is figuring out how is it that we leverage each other's strength? How do we make sure that we maintain this access to upward mobility and opportunity in our wonderful city and the Bay Area, despite all of the attacks that are coming from the federal government, acknowledging that our people are our strength, that we've always been a city of immigrants, we've always been a city that welcomes people who are different, but who bring great assets, who add to what we have in terms of the richness of our experience and diversity. And most of all, how do we help each other, get there? So with that, I'm going to introduce our panelists because they've all done wonderful work doing part of this. The first one is Mario Paz, my friend, who is the Executive Director of the Good Samaritan Community Resource Center and co-chair of the San Francisco Family Services Alliance, which he co-founded in 2018 to champion support for families in San Francisco. Let's give it up for Mario. Then next to him is Liz Winograd, who serves as the director of the San Francisco Child Care Facilities Fund at the Low Income Investment Fund, otherwise, or known to all of us as LIF for short, where she leads a public-private partnership to expand and improve child care facilities across San Francisco. She's the former chair and current vice chair of the San Francisco Child Care Planning and Advisory Council, known to us also as CPAC. Then next to her, we have Erica Kisch, who serves as the executive director of Compass Family Services, an organization dedicated to helping families transition out of homelessness and achieve long-term stability and self-sufficiency. She has led this organization doing God's work for 22 years. Thank you, Erica. And then last but not least, my friend Dion-Jay Brookter, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Young Community Developers, a nonprofit providing workforce development, education, housing services to San Francisco's underserved Bayview Hunters Point community. Give it up for DJ. Okay, so we're going to start with Mario, and then I'm going to come join you so we can speak a little more intimately. So, Mario, could you describe how the Family Resources Center initiative addresses that challenge that all organizations have, where you have multiple contracts, multiple funding sources with different city departments? They all have different requirements, different RFPs. It's different deadlines. How is this model helping streamline services for families?
Well, first of all, before I start, I want to thank you, Supervisor Melgar, for continuing to be a great champion for children, youth, and families in our city. Thank you. And since I have this opportunity, I also want to say to all of you that we can't thank you enough for what you do each and every day for our children, youth, and families. Please appreciate each other. Please honor each other, because we know how you honor the community. So thank you for what you do each and every day. It's sort of interesting because this morning, at this morning's panel with our department leaders, they said, Ingrid and Charisse stole a little bit of my thunder as I was going to discuss the Family Resource Center initiative. They were bragging a lot about it. But let me tell you a story how it all got started. So close to 18 years ago, a group of like-minded individuals, really great leaders, a lot of us were system thinkers. Most important, we were passionate about the work we were doing. We were passionate about making a difference in the lives of children, youth, and families in San Francisco. And we felt that we can do better work if we can figure out how to reduce the multiple silos that was really impeding our abilities to do our best work. And so we began to meet over a period of time, a group of community leaders, group of leaders from the city, including from the Department of Human Service Agency, DCYF, at that time First Five, now Department of Early Childhood. We began to have a series of conversations and meetings, I remember, almost over a period of a year. And what got born out of that work was this sort of what I feel is always important, is to have a unified vision. And what we decided is, we believe that if we're going to really improve outcomes for children, we know we got to have strong families. And we also knew that we need to have holistic approaches. You know, we call it now, we think about the social determinants of health. We were thinking about that many, many years ago. We were thinking that the whole child approach, the two-generation, multi-generation approach, we knew that that would make a difference. But we needed to all come together, funders and community, to figure out how we can streamline and really create this unified vision. And so out of that, what got created, first of all, was a blended funding model. There were 3 departments that decided that they would invest in this vision. It came under the leadership at that time on the First Five, now DEC. And we began to build from there. We created uniform standards for accountability. We created professional training for organizations that were doing really good family support work. We began to set these standards across the board, certification standards, so that everyone that's doing case management, intake, is doing work on the ground, had some really basic skills and knowledge that wherever family in any neighborhood that they came in, they would get the same type of support. We saw the people we were serving not as clients with deficits. We saw them as our friends and neighbors, the people that had strengths. And so our work is about helping those families, those children, those youth discover their strengths. And through that discovery, we're going to figure out how to improve their lives. And this is all the work that we did over a period of years. And we built on it. And, you know, it became an initiative that checked all the boxes. Shared accountability, blended financing, a unified vision, high standards of accountability and integrity. We were data-driven. We got results. Think about some of the results we got. We've reduced child abuse and neglect by more than 60% since 2009. Yes, it's amazing. Our enhanced case management systems that we've been able to do through our training, 67% reduction in family stressors and family risk. It's amazing. We know that prevention works, right? And that's why you heard the panel this morning really bragging. What they forgot to mention is that we did it on a real low budget. Right? All of you know. We did it on a very low budget. And to this day, it's a very low budget. But all of you, right? And all I can say is, we now need to look at initiatives like the Family Resource Center Initiative. It works, it checks all the boxes. You heard what was said this morning. We want to fully fund you. We want to fund what works. We want to adequately fund you. We're determined. We're going to do unified. Okay, we're going to hold them to it. I'm just going to say there's 300 plus witnesses. We got you on videotape, right? So we're going to do it. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you for explaining how that collaborative approach improved both access and outcomes. That's what we're here for. So next, I will go to Liz. Given the essential role childcare plays in enabling families to thrive, can you share how San Francisco's subsidized childcare program supports families in meeting their needs and how, the different funding sources relate to one another?
Well, I'd also like to thank you, Supervisor Melgar, for all you do for the children in San Francisco and your support. So thank you. Thank you for the question. First, I need to say that we here in San Francisco should be very proud because our subsidized childcare system is the leading in the nation. And it's pretty amazing to be a part of this system. And these funds are anchored by, I think we heard earlier today, a proposition that was passed, Baby Prop C, we call it. So this was a commercial rent tax that voters passed in 2018. And this was created for dedicated and sustainable funding stream for just early care and education, which, again, is leading in the nation. With these investments, the city has been able to support much of our low-income community, up to 150% of the AMI, and actively our community is advocating to expand this area median income up to 200%. So even more working families can access high-quality and affordable early education. And what really makes our system so unique, and again, I'll repeat as this morning our panelists said this afternoon, and again Mario, is that we really are collaborative. I mean, we're sitting here today. We had all of our educational organizations in the same room, and we just have a real unique and holistic approach. And early childhood education is also integrated with our family resource centers and wellness initiatives. And so we're not just helping our students, our children learn and grow, but we're looking at the whole family and the well-being of families in this approach. So Prop C allows us to invest in Prop C allows us to invest in our workforce. It was able to bring up wages to be living wages, and hopefully continue to increase wages, because we really want our teachers, our workforce to be able to live in San Francisco. So lastly, I'm really excited to talk about a new initiative, well, not really a new initiative, but again, a collaboration of many of our education systems for universal preschool, which will be launched very soon in 2027. So this is a real major step forward for early learning in San Francisco. A lot of really great people have been working to make this work, and really excited and can't wait. So this really is a comprehensive collaboration across sectors of our education systems. So Department of Children, Youth and Families, San Francisco Unified School District, our family child care providers, our child care centers, and of course the Department of Early Childhood. And the goal of this initiative is to access to high quality early learning options that meet the unique needs of all 4-year-olds. We're expanding choice for families and supporting kindergarten readiness and laying down the foundation for lifelong learners. And importantly, this work aligns with statewide goals, and while staying rooted in local policies. We're making sure that San Francisco's implementation reflects the voice and needs of our children, families, and our workforce. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Erica, Compass Family Services has operated an early education program now for a while. You've figured out a unique model that meets the needs of this very high needs population. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, yeah. So we have many programs that are addressing the needs of families that are homeless and at risk of homelessness, and one of them is Compass Children's Center, which has been around since 1976. And just as a caveat, my background is in social work, and I know there are a lot of you out there who are early childhood educators and have much more expertise than I do. But from my seat, trying to make everything work, we were just having the hardest time, and I know many of you can relate to this, getting the special needs met of so many of the children we serve. At this point, about 40% of the children at Compass Children's Center have been identified as having special needs. And this has always been an issue, going back as long as I can remember, which is quite a long time. But during the pandemic, things just got so much worse. So our center, the one I'm talking about, is located on Leavenworth and Golden Gate, an area that has a lot of challenges, but so many needs. So we had all these children we were trying to serve. We couldn't get them assessments. We couldn't get them the services they are legally entitled to. And our goal is to prepare children for education and success in life, and it was just an absolute travesty. So we decided at one point, like, the hell with this, we are going to figure out a way to hire, for starters, a speech and language pathologist. And at the time, we had a little bit of funding so that we could make it work in the moment, but we did not have long-term funding. So the idea was, we're going to keep a really good track of data, because we know if we make this change, it'll make a difference. So we're going to need to make a case down the road for more funding. We created this position without a guarantee of funding. And then we started talking to our friends at Felton and our supporters at the Mimi and Peter Haas Fund. And over the past couple of years, with efforts that were really trailblazed by Felton, we've created these vendorized relationships with the Golden Gate Regional Center and the San Francisco Unified District, who don't really have the capacity to provide the services that are legally required for our children. So we have our own staff who are providing these services, and we are able to bill the district and Golden Gate Regional Center for reimbursement. These are high-level expensive positions. It's not cheap to hire an SLP or an early education specialist, and it doesn't pay for all of the costs of the positions, but these vendorized relationships do help to defray the costs. And it's been night and day in our center. Kids getting their needs met. It makes a difference if a child can communicate, as you all know, so they're not acting out their frustration. And it makes a difference for the teachers, the entire classroom. We've got children who are meeting their IEP goals before they even graduate to kindergarten. And it's really been a game changer for us. And just another shout out to our friends at Felton and the Medium Peter Haas Fund for the partnership that we've created around this to meet these needs.
Thank you, Erica. So we heard from our first three panelists about collaborative family supports for the littles. But families sometimes include older youth, and sometimes those youth become involved in our juvenile justice system. So DJ, can you describe the Justice Service Care Coordinator model and how it's been a collaborative success?
Absolutely. And I think first and foremost, I want to echo what folks have shared. And we had a call earlier, and I promise you guys we did not all share that we were going to be wearing black today. But I can share with you, when I woke up today, I said I'm wearing black, Franklin, and I was wearing a hoodie, because it's just how I was feeling today. And I want you guys to give it up for yourselves. The fact that you guys have been here all day, this room, I just feel hope. I'm looking at the panels before, and I just was sad that I didn't get an opportunity to join. However, I'm hopeful and elated because today we actually opened up a brand new building that's 112 units of affordable housing in District 10, which are homes for our families, which is what we're talking about today. So I just wanted to lead in with that. And I'm hopeful. I'm so happy to be here with Supervisor Melgar on this panel today. And as I talk about JSCC, it's a deep-rooted partnership with young community developers, Sunset Youth Services, the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice, Mission Neighborhood Centers, Bay Area Community Resources, Huckleberry Youth Programs, Juvenile Probation, and the Department of Children, Youth, and their Families. The reason I needed to name each and every one of them is because it takes all of us. I think as we were having our discussion and we were talking about shared accountability, this is a partnership that says we are going to hold each other accountable, but we're going to share that space together. I was talking to my team, and I didn't know that folks are meeting 2 to 3 times every single week as we are having discussions on those who are most vulnerable to ensure that they do not slip through the cracks. So the model itself is unprecedented. It's one of the only public and private partnerships involving the juvenile justice system, and we think it's actually here the only one in the state. So I'm proud that also San Francisco and the work that we're doing is leading our state as we normally do here in San Francisco. You can give it up for that. We say, as goes San Francisco, so goes the rest of the nation. But the model ensures that all young folks are connected to community-based organizations like the ones that you see here quickly after they've been arrested or detained. And they are supported throughout their juvenile case process, which is huge. The model also looks at the young folks in the justice system to make sure that they receive similar levels of support consistently. And that's huge, that word consistently, throughout their time in the system. And we also make sure that their individualized needs are met according to their strengths and also the circumstances that they're going through. And what this has also done for us as an organization is also led to what you guys will hear me talk about a little bit later, is really creating an ecosystem to wrap our arms around those who are most vulnerable in our cradle to career and beyond. But I want to be cognizant of time, so I will go ahead and I'll yield my time.
Thank you, DJ. So DJ mentioned the need and the success of leveraging private funding for an initiative like this. So families can have a seamless experience and fill the gaps, between the existing funding sources. So Liz, can you tell us about the organization that you work with, the Low Income Investment Fund, and how you leverage specifically public funds to fill those gaps and build childcare facilities and playgrounds?
Yes, thank you. So Low Income Investment Fund, as Supervisor Melgar said, LIF for short, is a community development financial institution, and part of the mission-driven arm of our organization is early childhood. And so we truly believe that all children, especially our most vulnerable children, have access to high-quality early learning, but also high-quality learning environments. So we do this by building and improving childcare facilities, which includes natural outdoor learning spaces. So much of LIFT's childcare funding comes through the Department of Early Childhood, and thanks to Baby Prop C, we're proud to be able to leverage these public investments with private capital and partnerships across the city. And without these partnerships, this work could not be done. It's really important that we bring our communities, our for-profits, our nonprofits, our government agencies together to really be successful in our work. So in San Francisco, these partnerships have helped us expand access, so create new spaces to early learning environments in neighborhoods where childcare is scarce. So since FY21, LIF has been able to deploy $58 million in grants to early childcare providers, which includes centers as well as family childcare providers. So what these funds are doing are capital or facility improvements and helping programs meet those licensing standards and create self and welcoming spaces for children and families. We've integrated, over the last 4 years, we've integrated nature play. Given that we have some access issues to green spaces in our city, we decided to bring these green spaces to the childcare space. And so Over the last 4 years, we've been able to green and naturalize 31 child care providers in San Francisco. And I see some of you sitting here today. And then another thing, as we've been talking about, and the mayor's been talking about, how do we keep our families here in San Francisco? How do we bring new families who want to come to San Francisco? But in order to keep our families here, we have what our family child care providers, and it is very difficult to lease and rent homes in San Francisco, as I'm sure many of you already know. And we created a homeownership assistance program. And in the last year, we've been able to help 6 family child care providers become homeowners. But our goals really go beyond that. LIF also provides the technical assistance and the professional development to support our workforce, because a strong infrastructure must be matched by strong educators, and we really want to support those educators. This work is deeply collaborative, and we bring private funding to fill the gaps to accelerate impact. It's not just about facilities, it's about opportunity and equity for our children and their families.
Thanks, Liz. So Erica, Compass Family Services has developed several programs that leverage private funding. So can you talk to us a little bit about that and how that has led to better housing stability and outcomes for access to these families, for these families?
Yeah, sure. I'm sitting here thinking, working with private dollars is one of the things I like the most about my job, because you can be creative and you can be innovative and you can be flexible. So I have a lot of examples, and I'll talk until I'm given the wrap sign. So one thing that we've been doing, we started about a year ago, and it was something that I was interested in creating for a number of years. But so you all probably know that Compass Family Services, we serve families that are homeless and at risk of homelessness. And that is our mission. But we have 13 programs, and not all of those programs, while all of them are targeting that population, are addressing the housing part of the crisis. So, Compass Children's Center, if a family is homeless, who's going to help the family with their housing? We have behavioral health services and a number of other programs where that is not the focus, but that is one of the major needs. So it kind of came about with one particular case where we had a dad who had some kind of obscure housing voucher, and he was in a program, and it was like, well, who's going to help this guy? And there's a time limit on this subsidy, and it just stuck with me. Like, we have a big gap in our services. So a couple of years later, we had an opportunity with a private funder to create what we call Compass Housing Location Services. So we work with families who are our clients but aren't in our housing programs to secure housing. And it starts with, if you're interested, you show up for a couple of workshops, and if you show up, then we'll pair you with more intensive services with a case manager that will help you through the process to a housing unit. And there are a lot of families. One of the things we do is we run one of the access points just 2 blocks from here for families that are facing homelessness. But you may know, or this may come as a surprise to you, there is not enough housing. There are not enough resources. So there are families that might not be homeless enough to get the services that the city is offering, or they just might not qualify. And we can take those families, and my thinking was, if we can divert 10%, 15% of the families that are in crisis, that are not being served by the system, and divert them into housing, we've got a huge win. And we've been operating these services since April. We've housed 22 families this way. We've served 285 families with housing search. And we're about to introduce shallow subsidies, because that's the piece of this intervention that is missing. so that we'll be able to serve even more families and divert them from a system that is overtaxed and overloaded.
Thank you, Erica. So, Mario, we've been discussing about breaking down silos and how cross-sector collaboration is so important for supporting success for families. This next question is such a setup for me, from you. I'm just acknowledging that. So what is one concrete change that you believe the city could make to help nonprofit partners deliver seamless and effective supports for children, youth, and families?
Well, I'm going to break the rule and give you more than one concrete change. I think it begins with a real unified vision, but not a vision that lives in a policy brief, that lives in a resolution, but a vision that lives in the day-to-day work that each of you are doing. A vision that matters, that we can get behind from, that we can believe in. We want our children to see themselves having a future in the city. All children, not just a privileged few. We want our struggling families not to just survive, but to thrive. Okay? This is what we can do each and every day if we all believe in something together. So it begins there. We heard this morning about flexibility, right? Flexibility in our contracting, adequately funding us. Okay, let's make that happen. Let's make that commitment. Okay, in a couple of days, philanthropy in the city stood at the steps of City Hall and made a commitment to make sure that no family, no child, no senior goes hungry in the month of November when the federal government was going to cut SNAP benefits. That happened in a couple of days. Look at all the amazing work we did during COVID. All these barriers that were lifted, all these contract requirements, all this flexibility that we got both from our private funders and government. That should be the norm. It shouldn't take a crisis for us to do the impactful work that we need to do to change things. We talked about data sharing. We need to get better at sharing data. But we need the department to take the lead and help us and create the right type of referral system so we can all work collaboratively together. And last, what we heard a lot is about the stable funding, right? The long-term funding. It's not rocket scientists. Every research, philanthropic research, government research has said it across the board. Long-term sustainable funding, flexibility, fund the general operations. We heard it from the earlier panel. They were all right. I'm sitting here on Keon's chair. We have a lot of man love, as you can hear. I respect it so much. It's not that hard. We can make this happen. In this city, we should be able to make this happen. So let's do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. So DJ, as we close, how can leveraging private funding and partnerships make a difference in serving San Francisco's families? And what does real, respectful collaboration look like for providers and partners? I added the respectful. They didn't put that in my script because I've been an ED, so.
You're good at this. I really appreciate that question. And it's the intentionality, right? When I think about private funding and how it helps us here in the city, it allows us to be intentional. I think that's the word that I use. So one of the things that we're working on is this model of cradle to career and beyond. So we're looking at young folks on the early childhood education side, but looking at individuals and our seniors once they retire. And what does the lifespan of a young person look like? What sorts of programs that are sitting in this very room should that young person touch along their trajectory to be better off than each of us that are in this room today? And it's about being intentional. I think all of us that are here that do the work, we know who's doing the work, right? And we need to be able to call that out in a very respectful, meaningful way. But then it allows individuals like Tipping Point. It was so good to see Allie. I haven't seen Allie in a while. I think last time I saw Allie, we were in New York together, and she's also wearing black today. So I don't know what that was. But when you can go to folks in philanthropy to say, hey, this is what we're seeing on the ground when we're working with our families. This is the need. And I heard the last panel say, for them to say, well, we absolutely trust you, what you're hearing, and the work that you're going to do with those folks that you're working with. And that just begins to design this whole intentional ecosystem of being able to work together. There's also some concrete examples for us when I think about our Phoenix project, which was an initiative that was started via Hope SF for public housing sites in Bayview Hunters Point, which we have all of the public housing sites for the most part in District 10. And it was a program that was funded through the San Francisco Foundation, the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, and DCYF to say, those young people that are in public housing, whatever it is that they need to, as Mario was saying, not just survive, but to thrive, this initiative can help those young people. We have initiatives like the Black to the Future, which actually encompasses 15 nonprofit organizations citywide that collectively looks at African American families in San Francisco unapologetically and allows those services, as long as they have young people in the household, to provide them with whatever it is that they need in order to stay and thrive here in San Francisco. And it's a lot of times things that we don't think about. When a young person starts school and they need a uniform for school and parents can't afford that, it's very difficult with city dollars to go purchase clothing. So when we get funding from private and philanthropy folks, it allows us to be able to do that. But it takes us being forward thinkers, being collaborators to say, our city, our folks in philanthropy, and these big conglomerate-ass corporations that are here, and I apologize for swearing, but Supervisor Melgar started it off. She said the S word earlier, so she started it off. But we need to hold those corporations accountable to say, we all collectively need to work together for this shared accountability piece to make sure that our families, those who are justice involved, have a place here in San Francisco.
Well said. Thank you, DJ, and thank you to all the panelists for this really important conversation. Such great examples of collaboration, of leveraging funding, leveraging the work of others, looking at things interconnectedly and collaboratively. That is what we do at our best. So I have to tell you, over the last few years, San Francisco has actually invested quite a bit in children. If we look back, going back, 25 years, the Children's Baseline, the Children's Fund, the Public Enrichment Education Fund, Baby Prop C, Proposition G, the Student Success Fund that we passed just a couple years ago, we believe in our children, in our future. And the fact that you are all here on a Friday afternoon, still sitting, listening to all of us, is a testament of how deeply and passionately we believe in the success of our children. And I was really struck by what you said, Mario, because it is all about a vision. And it's amazing to me about how much we all share that vision. I mean, San Francisco has been consistent in our support for families, for children. And now that we are being threatened by the federal government and facing budget cuts, we've got to fight for that vision. We have to make sure we defend every inch and every dollar of what we have achieved, because preventing people from falling is the way that we keep each other safe. So we cannot wait. We cannot wait until people fall and get hurt before we do something about it. Is a human, value that we have all held, pretty dearly, but it's also more cost effective, right? I mean, that's the way that we hold that. So I hear you about being flexible while we hold each other accountable and hold our government accountable too, right? Because just because somebody thinks it's a good idea that you have to fill out 10 pages of a form to get, $15 doesn't necessarily mean that that's in the best interest of government either. So thank you so much for talking about innovation and collaboration, for all of the great ideas that you implement day to day, and for all of your love, kindness, and passion that you put towards this work. And thank you for coming and being part of this panel.
Will you show just a little bit more love for your colleagues?